Hello, lovely people! Welcome to part 2 of my look at whether or not labels, specifically LGBTQ+ ones, are important. If you missed part 1 looking at all the reasons they are important and why people care so much about them, then you can find that linked in the description below. For these 2 videos, I've done something a little different and taken both video and written submissions from subscribers to make sure we get a more well-rounded view that is not just my experience. Some viewers weren't comfortable with their faces on screen, and some wished to remain anonymous, so I'll be reading out their thoughts. Please, in those moments, ignore my incredibly white face and incredibly British voice. I can't change either of those things. A special thank you to members of the Kellgren-Fozard Club who helped make this video possible. If you too would like to support this channel while gaining access to behind-the-scenes content, downloadable goodies, and my adorable face after your name, along with other perks, then click the join button next to the subscribe button, which you've already clicked, right? The negatives of labeling. Divides people. One of the often stated problems with adopting labels is that they can lead to this us and them mindset. It's argued that taking a minority label could turn us into victims and resulting in us seeing our differences as the fault of the other. We can personalize it rather than seeing it as a way to understand ourselves, and we can launch an attack on people who are different. According to right-wing Twitter, so we'll take that with a pinch of salt. But it is true that certain labels divide opinion in the LGBTQ+ community. One of our anonymous commenters had a great description of why labels can be unhelpful sometimes. Although labeling serves to help others understand me, it does so based on definitions set by others and potentially subjects me to stereotyping. Case in point, it annoys me when people find out that I'm gay and respond with, "Oh, but you don't look gay," as if they just complimented me. Then the intuitive thing to do is to be more specific and accurate in representation, right? It is fair to help others to understand us, but in dicing things finer, there's also the danger of highlighting differences and becoming more divisive as a society and within our own LGBTQ+ community. Alex agreed. I find myself far removed from the queer community because I dislike expectations that come with the externalization of labels. I avoid queer spaces and disabled spaces because I don't want to be informed that I can't call myself queer, I can call myself whatever I like, thank you, or be told to prove I'm really what I say I am. So much of life is performative, and I find it too exhausting to deal with. Thus, I set my labels as broadly as I can to loosen expectations. My labels helped me to find who I am, however sharing them creates expectations that I do not have the spoons to meet or refute. Changes our behaviour. There is a danger, when bestowing labels upon others and taking them for ourselves, that they can start to dictate our behaviour. For example, when I was around 12, I realised that these feelings I'd always had for girls had a name: lesbianism. So I started to look up lesbians. Bear in mind that this was the noughties, I was using dial-up internet, and I'd never seen a lesbian in a film or TV, so I realised that I was not a good lesbian. I didn't dress the way the internet told me lesbians were meant to dress. Short hair, check shirt, jeans, like a lumberjack really. And I didn't enjoy the things that lesbians were meant to enjoy, mainly mechanics and motorbikes. I mean, this did not fit that description. So I tried my hardest for 6 months to be a good lesbian, and I hated it. So I went back to Twin Sets and Pals and I thought, screw it, they'll just have to take me as I am. Changes how others see us. Just as I thought I needed to cut off all of my hair and start learning to ride a motorbike, so did some of my friends. Because that's what lesbians do, right? No. There's not just one way to be something.
I think, as most people know, bisexuality is one of the troubled terms because people think that bisexual people are promiscuous, that bisexual people maybe wouldn't be trustworthy in one relationship or another because they'd want to be with somebody else. And that's something that has come up, I think, a lot where, you know, bisexual people have had to say, no, see, I choose you. Labels are important, it's important to me, and I appreciate that labels available and that discussions are had around labels and what they mean, and it allows other people to really understand something about me that's important.
Thank you.
We can imprison ourselves with labels, but we can also do the same to others. My friend is straight. They wouldn't understand the specific pain of my breakup. Well, they might. I'm not saying that all types of minority identities are the same, but the feeling of being in the minority is. And if labels do their jobs, then they should help us to understand ourselves so we can better empathise with and understand others. An anonymous submission read, I feel that having an extensive glossary of LGBTQ+ terms is helpful and essential, and I do not think that the terms identity definers and labels should be used interchangeably. For me, to identify myself with a term is to relate and to find a sense of belonging, which is a personal journey with my inner self, whereas to label myself with a term is to be placed within definitions to help others manage their expectations of my existence. We're multifaceted. Perhaps the most common negative comment about labels is that we're all made up of so many different parts that sometimes labels just don't work in isolation. Equally, sometimes one or two aspects of you are more important than the others or have greater bearing on your life, so you don't necessarily use or connect with the other labels for your identity.
Hello, my name is Mark, and I identify as gay and trans and also as a Quaker. I think the reason that I identify with these labels and not with another label that applies to me, such as being chronically ill, is that the queer community and the Quaker community are both places that nurtured me when I was first entering them. And they're places where I have taken on volunteer roles, also done in-reach and outreach between the two communities. So these labels are somewhat enmeshed for me as well. So yeah, it's about being part of a community rather than having simple words that are identifying me in isolation. So those are my labels, and that's why they're important to me. Thank you very much.
Lauren wrote, I'm a cisgendered black woman that's bisexual. I'm an agnostic Christian pagan. However, being a pagan and bisexual are not labels I disclose. As I'm black, people assume I'm fully Christian and I don't correct them. And as I'm married to a man, people assume that I'm heterosexual. And I've not disclosed that I'm bisexual to anyone besides my husband, as I just feel that there isn't any point. As long as I know that I'm bisexual and accept that, then that's all that matters. Labels aren't important. There is an argument that labels are unimportant because we should know ourselves without them. When practicing the discipline of getting to know ourselves, are the abstract generalizations of labels applicable? Human beings generally love being told what to do and how we're supposed to behave. Don't act like we don't. We're all mostly just genetically programmed to be adorable little sheep. It's why we eat pineapple, objectively the worst fruit ever. Fight me. It's natural for us to seek out categories and cozy little boxes, communities we can identify with and associations that stand for what we believe in, but it can be all too easy to become defined by and to define ourselves by these rather than by our own hearts. For an obvious example of this, just think of party politics, where people define their views by the views of their party rather than their own judgment. I am a conservative, so I believe X. I am a Green Party member, so I think Y. For argument's sake, and this is very much my personal belief, really no one is entirely one thing. You're not a liberal, you just hold certain beliefs that have been defined as liberal, but you probably have some that are more centrist or even conservative. Equally, policies that are defined as left-wing in America, in British or Scandinavian countries might be touted by more right-of-centre groups. The Conservative Party were the ones who put gay marriage into law in Britain. So you see, the label ascribed to your beliefs can change based on where you are or the situation you're in. A woman may love another woman, have that feeling be called lesbianism, go through a gender transition into male and have that love be called heterosexuality, although the love between them is the same. So, in reality, it's all very malleable. We need to open ourselves up to exploration and change. Thus, rather than being freed by a self-understanding, we can become imprisoned by it. You may feel scared, having already come out to family and friends as gay, to then explore feelings that exist outside of that box. You may worry about breaking your record as the easy child by sharing with your parents that actually you're questioning your gender. Equally, perhaps there's a sport that you love, but you've never seen a non-binary person take part in it, so you don't pursue it. Perhaps you don't apply to the university of your dreams because people with your skin tone historically aren't well represented there. It's hard to break glass ceilings. It's hard to fight inequality, and it's hard to be different. But small steps lead to big change. You have a light within you, and you can follow its path. I believe that, and I believe in you. Labels can be dangerous. Sadly, I don't need to explain much more about this heading. It is still illegal to identify as LGBTQ+ in over 70 countries, 12 of which carry the death penalty. I received messages from subscribers saying that they would like to be involved in this video, but they couldn't because it would put them at risk. So as much as we can celebrate Pride and throw a parade, it would be remiss if we didn't think about our LGBTQ+ siblings for whom labels carry such a heavy burden. Language is innately flawed. All language is subjective and inefficient, really. We've made up words for feelings, but feelings don't have edges like words do. There's no hard barrier for where this sense of myself ends and the next part begins. We make up words for commonalities, but we'll never really know if another person experiences the same thing in the way that you do. Hands up if you're thinking, do we all see blue the same way? Words don't really innately have a meaning, we just ascribe one to those certain sounds and then allow that to change over time. At one time, the sound, queer, was an insult, but now some people wear it with pride because to them it fits a feeling that they have inside. And we can't really comment on that, telling them that it's wrong or right, because we don't have that feeling. So whilst an outsider may attribute negative or ignorant feelings to your label, it can still be purely yours. And I'm apparently now a philosophy channel. Welcome.
The label bisexual when I was in high school was the only one available. Pansexual is newer, and I know that there's some debates around whether the term bisexual is transphobic. And it's one of the reasons I wanted to talk about this actually is that I identify with bisexual and I'm not transphobic. I've dated trans people. So it's the label I'm comfortable with. And then I'm happy to, have the debates around, what bi and pan mean. It, to me, isn't enough of a difference to try talking about pansexuality with somebody like my mother maybe who really would not know what that is, and bisexual is a much easier label. That's why I use it. It's easier, and there you go. Did that answer the question?
I believe that it does.
Excellent.
You may use the word female because that's how you feel 90% of the time, and it's just the closest word you have to associate that with. Yet someone else hearing you describe yourself in that way may think that you feel female 100% of the time. You should still respect other people's labels. You may not like it. You might think it's silly. You might think that someone else using the label you like to use in some way invalidates you, but it isn't. And it doesn't. Society is built upon mutual respect. Just because you disagree with someone doesn't mean you have the right to invalidate or interfere with their life. We can't tell other people which labels they're allowed to use. We can't police their behaviour under the banner of that label. Unfortunately, there will also be terrible people who think that their label gives them the right to try and tear down yours. It doesn't. All we can do is treat others with respect and hope that they do the same to us. Be the change. But also sue companies and institutions that discriminate against you. And protest when you need to. And stick up for others, especially those who are the most vulnerable. Oh, and always respect a person's pronouns. As Steve wrote, I like getting to know people, and if they have a preferred label of any sort, I'm really glad if they tell me, so I won't call someone a person with disabilities or deaf, who I know likes the term disabled or hard of hearing better, and I won't call someone he if they identify as a woman. I find it very important to communicate it though, because I'm educating myself as hard as I can to use the correct pronouns and to know for sure what pansexual, Latinx and other words actually mean, so I won't misuse them. But telling me what you want me to call you or refer to you as is a huge help. Labels create acceptance. The more we talk about our labels or display our flags, the more they're normalised. Delightfully, our labels become more ingrained in society over time. Gender variation is certainly more accepted now than it was in the land of pink and blue toys that I grew up in. It's slow, certainly. But if no one talked about their labels or blew through negative stereotypes, there wouldn't be the acceptance we have now.
My name is Amanda. I identify as a cisgendered, straight, Asian American woman. And as an American, I'm also going to throw in the fact that I'm a Midwesterner. I'm straight and cisgendered. Why am I in Jessica's video? It's because I want to talk about demisexuality. I also identify as a demisexual, and I want to talk about my own views and experiences with labels because of that identity. So what is demisexuality? Broadly speaking, It's part of the sexuality, asexuality spectrum. It's kind of half asexual and half sexual. That's where demi comes into play. From my personal experiences, because everybody who is demisexual is different, I personally rarely experience any sort of attraction, whether it be a crush, romantic attraction, or sexual attraction. Personally, I do not celebrate Pride for myself. I celebrate it for the wider LGBTQIA community, but other demisexuals will celebrate Pride because being demisexual is a part of the LGBTQ plus spectrum. I just personally feel uncomfortable saying that I've had similar experiences to other members of the LGBTQ plus community because I have not. I don't have any microaggressions or macroaggressions against me because of being demisexual. And so I want to close out with my broader view on labels. I think they are a good starting point for learning and awareness, can be a foundation to have conversations, and they establish a point of reference for other people because a kind of concrete word that people can sort of build their knowledge around. But I don't believe that people need to be confined to labels.
You don't need to label something to enjoy it. Say you identify as a cis-het guy. You don't need to label yourself to explore things that the world wants you to believe are outside of your label. If you want to paint your nails, you go ahead. If you want to make out with that cute boy from your maths class, go ahead. Labels are just words. They can be helpful, they can be great, but they don't need to restrict how you live your life. And you're still you with or without them. Labels communicate how you feel, but they don't change the feeling. A closeted person, a label ambivalent person, a questioning person, and someone who feels their gender shifts every day are all just as valid as someone who has always gone by the same label and been sure of who they are.
You don't have to identify with any labels in order to be valid and to have that sense of security, because everyone is valid no matter what.
Natasha says, I wish we didn't need labels anymore in a way. I feel like I can be attracted to, well, people in general, no matter what their label is. And I wish it could just be without having to be such a big deal. I wish we didn't have to come out anymore. I really hope someday we can just all live our lives without having to explain ourselves constantly. But since we still have a long way to go, until then, I'm happy to come out again and again if I have to.
I think labels are really wonderful when they are empowering and they set you free, but are also absolutely not essential or obligatory. I didn't always identify with a label for my sexuality. I just knew I wasn't completely straight. And now I identify as bi-pan because I find it empowering and helpful, but maybe one day I'll also go back to not identifying with a label. And in that sense, I think it's fine to be fluid with labels, and I also don't think you have to use a label to be a part of or to identify with a community.
And Edmund says, I think being able but not expected to define your identity is important because it's freedom to express yourself. If you like being in a neat little box, you've got that choice. If you hate it, you don't need to be. I guess I see it as having the option to do it as the most important part in a very important way that each person sees themselves. You do you. Be your fabulous self. Use labels if you want to. Ignore them if they don't fit. Change them every other day or just pile them on top of each other. Just stay true to yourself. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much to everyone who sent in pieces for this video. Please subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you in my next one. Mwah.